We're good to go. Hello, friends. Today I am joined by my husband, Sean, and my friend Patrick, whose channel will be
Hi.
linked below. And today we're going to be talking about the first 5 volumes of Witch Hat Atelier. This will definitely contain spoilers. And so Sean and Patrick only just read through the first 5 volumes. And with Sean in particular, I told him, don't tell me any of your thoughts. We're going to save it. So I thought it'd be fun to just start with a general chat about how we're feeling about it currently. How have your feelings changed from when you first started it till now? Because I think things definitely took a little bit of a turn and they got a little more serious as we got further into it. So, Patrick, what are your thoughts so far?
I definitely liked it. At first, I think I talked about this to you already, but at first, I was so distracted by the artwork, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. They're just so beautiful, and I'm just keep focusing on the artwork instead of the story, at least in the first 2 volumes. But after giving it a reread, I think, yeah, it worked out so much better now, and I can focus on everything. And at first, I really thought that this is, well, a wholesome story, like a Studio Ghibli movies. I
Yeah.
think that is a great comparison. Yeah, but now after the 5th volume, it's started getting quite dark.
Yes, I think
Yeah,
it's had a lot of hints along the way that
yeah,
maybe it has potential to go that direction, and I
yeah.
still can't quite tell how dark it's going to get. But
Hmm.
so Sean, he was like, "Okay, don't tell me," but he walked into the room the other day and he's like, "Did Kifri just wipe Mr. Nolnoa's mind? Don't tell me." But if he did, and he was all really concerned, and I had that same reaction that moment too. I was like, "Wait a second. Did Kifri
Yeah.
just do something?"
I'm still wondering if it's like a big fake out, if Mr.
Hmm.
Null Noah is just like really good at being like
Acting.
I didn't see anything, like I don't know. But he seems like he really doesn't remember the giant light or
Well,
whatever
and
beam of light.
in
Yeah.
the 5th volume, doesn't Kifri say to the one of the enemies, he says something about seeing someone with his look, right?
Research. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, is the one with the eye his brother or something? Because that would maybe
Hmm.
explain why he's so determined. Because he's kind of in some ways using Coco, it feels like, to try and
Mhm.
get them to show themselves.
Yeah.
And he seems like he genuinely cares about Coco and all of his apprentices, but it makes you wonder if there's either a darker side to him or
Yeah.
he has a dark family past or something.
Yeah.
But
I think there's potential for a darker side of Kifri.
Kifri.
I think the other guy, I can't, is it Orugio?
yeah.
Orugio. Yeah.
Yeah, the Watcher guy. He seems pretty, he's a pain in the butt, but also pure of heart. Like he's like
Yes.
kind of a stickler.
Where Kifri initially seems pure of heart. He has more of this pure look, but then you wonder if there's something. Because even in that battle in the 5th volume, when he starts getting really angry, you're like, oh, is there something more? I was telling Sean Petrick that Kifri had that cool moment where he finally like takes off his the coat, and it's like, now it's time to show how awesome he can be. The classic like anime manga cool
Yeah.
But I was with you where when I first started, I'm like, oh, this is cute. And I also was getting distracted by the art. I didn't go back and reread it like the first whole 2 volumes. I would have to stop and be like, wait a second, what's happening? Because the art was so pretty. And then I showed him, and I know I sent you the same image, but the artwork, even though it doesn't look like it's the same style, it makes me wonder other things that it's influenced. Because I sent to you that shot that I said, this looks just like that one area in Elden Ring with that bridge that goes to the tower.
Yeah.
And the artwork is it's really pretty and it looks so magical. And it's like panel after panel. It's not like every now and then you get a really beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. And I really love how Kamame Shirahama, the way she uses the panel. I think there's just so much freedom in the panel here.
I
Like
think
how one panel blends with each other, and then how the other one like connect with this one, and it's so good. It's really good.
She's done comic book artwork, right? Or at least covers for comics.
Yeah, covers for comics. Yeah.
One of
there was one part, I don't remember what volume it was, maybe 4, but when they're doing the second test, I mean, actually maybe it's 5, but there's like this it's just like a shot of the tunnel, or but like she does this thing where they're like layered panels on top of each other, and it like was completely unnecessary. Like you didn't have to do that, but it looked awesome. I was like, I mean, that's super cool.
There's just so much details in the art here. Really loved it.
I think that it can be it can start to almost look messy sometimes when artwork can be that detailed in such a small space, but I never feel like it feels messy. It's always really clean. And I know this is a silly thing to point out, but I just think it's worth noting that she has such a great imagination with their costumes, and not costumes, but like their attire. From everything from like the hats to the little dresses and coats and things that they wear, and even just the details with the shoes, being able to make them fly by having the magic on the bottom of the shoes and everything. And I think the magic is really creative. So I was gonna say that when you're talking about the way that she uses the panels, I love the little basically world building detail notes, where it's like, this is what a brush buddy is, and this is how this is the importance of a unique wand. And by the way, the brush buddies are the cutest. I liked in the 4th. I kept waiting for Sean to get to the 4th one so he could see that cute little story at the end with the brush buddies.
That was really cute.
So cute. Sean's pointed out too that with the way that, like, well, anyway, I'll just let Sean speak for himself, because you had some thoughts about the art and everything, and the magic specifically. You were saying to me that you feel like the magic is developed.
Are these my general thoughts?
Yeah.
I guess we're talking about magic.
Yeah, so I guess for me, what I liked at the beginning was that the magic seemed to be already planned out. I mean, it's kind of like the elemental magic to an extent, the fire, water, earth type magic, but the actual detail, they have to draw these seals, and Elle mentioned also just like them having most of it done, but then just sealing it off to do it rapidly. It's a nice touch. I mean, and it's planned out. In a good way, actually, this does remind me of Hunter x Hunter, and Coco reminds me of Gon a lot, and also their trials are kind of like the hunter. Is it just a hunter trial, hunter test, whatever they have to do to become hunters at the beginning? So in that way, it reminds me of that, except with, and hopefully no one's mad at me, but with magic that seemed a little bit more planned out. The Hunter x Hunter kind of seemed a little making it up as we go to me, but
until you have the scene where everything's explained all
exactly. Until like the tutorial scene.
I really quick want to add to that Sean he and I have compared not just Coco to Gon, but then we say Agot. I don't know if that's how you say their name, but Agot is kind of like Killua, where they're like the dark character.
Killua is badass though.
Yes. I think Killua was our favorite part. We never completed Hunter x Hunter, but what we'd watched of it, Killua was our favorite. And we would always, and it's funny because I put for the characters, I put Agot and then I put Sailor Mars. And is Sailor Mars who voices?
It's the same voice actress, I think.
I think that's for Killua. I think it's the same person.
Oh really?
I think so. Yeah. Anyway.
But it's funny because I hear that voice in my head for Agot. I'm like, oh, I don't know. It fits really well.
And I really love the magic system though. It's really good. And I thought that this was going to be much simpler than I thought, because, well, the premise is that everyone who can draw can cast magic. So I thought, oh, well, anyone can do this. But apparently the drawing part is not, as we know, it's not easy. It's not easy to draw.
And I think it's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say there's also the fact that at least we see with Tarda, I even put, I think they call it silver wash, where if you can't distinguish, he's the grandson of the wand shop owner, and he wants to pursue it, but then he isn't able to see as clearly because he doesn't seem to see colors very well. And then we see, and all three of us are kind of unsure how to say character names, but there's the Rika, who I put tests because she hates tests. But even when you see some of her, it's actually really sad how much pressure they put on the apprentices.
Yeah.
And how difficult, like you were saying, it's not just, oh, you just learn to draw certain patterns. And then I'm going in a bunch of different directions here for a second, but I just want to add to, I like that this magic system feels like it is established and that there are rules, but that it feels like you can do, it feels like the limits of it are based off your imagination. And so it feels like we're established, but that there's room for new things to be added without feeling like it's breaking the magic system. And then the fact that you have the enemies talking about these spells that you're not supposed to cast and they're forbidden makes you wonder what else can the magic do, because we haven't really seen too much of what it is, what's possible with it.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So going off, I mean, Petra was saying, like, you know, anyone who can draw can use magic, and then it's like, oh shoot, drawing is actually kind of hard. But the other thing with that is I do like this idea that we have to police the spells in a way. Like there's only certain approved spells, there's forbidden spells, and the reasoning behind that is it would seem in the distant past, we're not really sure, I don't think how far distant, maybe not even that long ago, but there terrible things were done by magic. And at first, you know, because I don't know, I'm weird, I was like, are these even the good guys, man? Like they should be allowed to do whatever they want. But then, like, I don't know, seeing the Knights Morales guy having a far off look in his eye and being like, we must protect it, you know, and I was like, oh shoot, he's seen some stuff, man. I don't know if maybe it is good to police what the people can use. So I don't know, I'm a little conflicted. I get the idea that I guess maybe I don't know quite what the forbidden spells can do yet, and but at the same time I'm like, I also like freedom, you know. It's hard to say. And
then with Iuni, it was that's a good example of magic that's gone poorly and that's used in a way that's not okay, even though he looks really cool as a wolf. And the imagination with the animals, because she has those penguins that aren't quite penguins, and then she has the wolves that have the scales. So even the creatures are, I think, just her kind of flexing not only her imagination but her drawing skills too, because she really can do whatever.
And the one brimmed hat seemed like he had somehow combined with his cat, right? I mean, that was the implication there. That that was kind of interesting.
Full Metal.
Full Metal Alchemist.
I was telling Sean, I was like, I don't want to say the character's name for anybody that hasn't read Full Metal, but I'm like, a certain character could have used these little girls' help. Like all the girls trying to figure out how to fix these problems. But what I was going to say is with Iuni, there's one panel in the 5th volume that shows with him as in his wolf form. There's a couple in the 5th volume. The 5th volume is really where I started to get more emotionally attached and starting to feel really sad. But anytime you see, I don't know, hopefully I probably shouldn't show the artwork in that because maybe there's like copyright or something, but there's an image of Iuni and he's like pinned when I think they're brimmed hats is what they're called, when it shows him in his actual human form and you see like the wolf as part of him. And he just looks so almost like in pain. And then when he turns back into the wolf so that he can better hide, and him and Rika have that moment where they kind of bond, and then he says, he says something like, I've always wanted to be someone else, and now all I want to be is myself. And you're like, oh. Poor Iuni. But obviously we won't get into predictions just yet because we're still chatting about a lot of things. But I don't know how long this manga is going to be. but
I don't know
can
too.
see.
I think this will be a long one.
I hope so, because I'm really
so
like
too.
Sean pointed out that there's at least I think like 5 tests or something like that there are trials.
5 if you want to take on your own apprentice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping, and I'm wondering if we're going to see them get older. But the reason I'm bringing up the time is because Iuni is already an example of a character that I can see potentially when we get to the end and there's eventually this big showdown where all these characters we met along the way kind of all come back together. And I'm hoping we get to see Iuni finally be happy with himself, but then have this cool wolf form too. That'd be pretty cool.
So I have another general thought. Just
Okay.
general thoughts. So one thing I really like that she's been doing and kind of keeping some cards, I think, close to the vest is, and I think I haven't read all of One Piece. I think I got up to like 40-ish volumes, but I actually think One Piece did this well too, where you'll have like a pretty brief background story for a character, like maybe a few pages, but you're like, oh shoot, that's kind of sad. And I think we'll probably learn more, but Rika's very short little background story with her brother and her seemingly kind of abusive mentor was very sad. Uni kind of this, or kind of the same thing with his sort of abusive mentor, and I didn't expect that to be a theme again of this. You know, you start like, oh, it's so happy, and then it's like some of the mentors are really mean and verbally abusive to their little kid apprentices. I was like, oh shoot, this is sad. And but anyways, she does that very economically. Like you get that emotion, like I said, after a few pages. She doesn't have to go into this big long backstory. You're pretty much like, oh, that was really sad, and then you're back into the action after that.
The artwork, I think, contributes to that too, because she is able to show pain and sadness so well. And just this, I think part of it is because so much of the artwork, especially with Coco being kind of the main character, they have these like big wonder-filled eyes. And so when they are sad, it's so much more obvious because she does so much with just the simplest changes to their features.
I'm going to mess up his name. Is it Iuni? Is that how we're saying it?
That's how
for now. Yeah. So he even like visually, he reminds me of I can't remember his name, the guy from Demon Slayer who
Zenitsu. Oh, his voice vanished.
I can hear him. He realized that he vanished, but he was saying, to
Zenitsu,
the
right?
character that you mentioned. We'll keep going so that Sean can. It's probably a Wi-Fi issue.
But I think what Sean said
go.
was quite right, though. He recently said right about how, well, if possible, we want to support freedom for the apprentice to use magic. But I think this is what makes the story more interesting because, well, it seems even though the bad guy, the Brim Hat people, are focused on forbidden magic, which is forbidden, but in a way, I think they are kind of focusing on the freedom to use magic. And so far, the mentors, plenty of them doesn't show that they're really good. I think there are room for maybe their side, Coco side, the mentor, probably are the bad ones. Probably. We'll see.
Well, and even just, I think something, so to kind of build off what you're saying, where you initially think, oh, these are the good guys, because you see what happens when Coco kind of is left to her own devices, we'll say, and then she accidentally turns her mom to stone. So you're like, oh, okay, we understand why they have these rules in place, but they're so rigid and they make so few exceptions that the fact that they wanted that all of our characters had to band together to figure out how to hide Iuni from, I think they're called the Knights Morales. They have to hide him because they know he'll wipe, his memories will be wiped. And they did the same thing where they were very ready to do that to Coco after what happened at the river. And I just want to say too, because Sean, I didn't want to forget, earlier was talking about how very quickly just little bits of foreshadowing or little bits of backstory with Agot and her family situation. Because when you first meet her, she's incredibly mean to Coco and so unfeeling. And it's like, yeah, that's why your mom's turned to stone. She's just very brutal. But it seems like she comes from a family and there's certain expectations of her. So she has probably been treated that same way. And so that's how she treats others. And I almost think she sees Coco's cheeriness as she's almost jealous that Coco gets to have that because she likely didn't get to have that. Because like what Sean was saying, it seems like one of the themes is kind of the way that adults can traumatize children and can really harm them in a lot of ways in their most vulnerable moments.
I think Rika even says something about like not trusting adults. Like I think she says something pretty explicitly about that. Also, I will say Agot, another kind of Killua connection, because Killua came from like an interesting family too.
Interesting family.
Very interesting family. I have to say, Agot, I knew would be my favorite. I feel like as soon as I saw her, I was like, she's a pain now, but she's gonna come around. You know.
Sailor Mars is your favorite too.
Yeah.
Got all those. So actually, it's one thing. Unless there was anything you wanted to add really quick to any of this before we move on.
Yeah. I had a thought, but I don't remember what it was.
Well, I was going to say, I know one thing Sean wanted to talk about was tropes and including character types. Because we've been kind of talking about comparing, Coco to Gon or comparing Agot to Sailor Mars or Killua. And you get some of those, you've got like the mentor. And like I was saying, you have the cool moment where he takes off his jacket. Now there's stuff's about to go down. You have these moments. But there's also, I think she uses tropes sometimes we're familiar with, but then she's doing something unique with them. Or she goes a completely different direction. I think Rika is somebody who I could be wrong, but she kind of seems maybe like neurodivergent to me. Some of her behavior. And I'm not sure if that's the intention that she had with that character, but I really like that we get somebody who maybe isn't going to read things the same way as everybody else, and they're embracing their differences. I really like that about that character. But I know Sean had some thoughts about the tropes.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe we come in dancing around it in this whole discussion, but the beginning obviously has great art throughout, but the beginning does feel kind of shonen-ish. I mean, you have like your like basic good character, thrown into a new world, a new situation. They're learning their powers, meeting friends along the way, the one who's really annoying or like mean, but loves you anyways. I don't know. It's the shonen thing. And I thought like, maybe I was like, well, I mean, hopefully it's not just the art that ends up kind of carrying this, but I pretty quickly, I mean, I think volumes 4 and 5 escalated, but even with the scene Elle brought up with the riverbed going dry and like just immediately like, we're gonna wipe your memories. I was like, oh, that's not good. How can our hero have her memories wiped? We can't have that. It
makes me wonder if at some point in the series we're gonna get a moment where one of our core characters does, because I can't imagine that we're gonna keep hinting at this possibility and then it never. I think we're gonna get a very dun 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 moment where somebody finally has their memories wiped.
Yeah. Well, and I think another thing we're dancing around the story is this idea that you can't heal people, and that's forbidden. Like when she's injured, she has to go to a doctor who tries their best. And I think Coco is trying to obviously make her mom not turn to stone, which could end up being forbidden magic. I think she does have a desire to heal people. The one panel of the kid from the river who's now in like a wheelchair or something, I was like, wow, that's kind of devastating when they refuse to heal him. I mean, they're like, no, we're not going to do that. And then just the kid who becomes wolf, like they want to reverse that, but even that they're like, oh well, we can't do that because that's forbidden. So I think that's something Coco will have to confront or find a way. Like it seemed like with I can't remember his name, whatever his name is, Wolf
Uni?
Kid. Yes, Wolf Kid.
Uni.
Wolf Kid. she was like trying to think inventively of how to help him by like reversing the signs or something, but it only half worked. So and obviously the brim hats want her to go down this road, and maybe they're manipulating her, but at the same time, not great that people are getting injured, and it's like, well, we could help you, but we're not going to do that.
There's so many things forbidden.
Yeah.
So
to a point where it feels like it's holding back society.
Yeah, exactly.
What were you going to say, though?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's keeping innovation back. I mean, I think that it feels like such red tape. I mean, I can't think of a specific example. Maybe one of the two of you will, but it just feels like there are a lot of instances in at least, like American healthcare or something where I'll use a very, very personal example of in 2020 when my father was in and out of the hospital and he was elderly, and obviously they had him on a lot of different medication that was making him very loopy. So he's not really able to speak on his behalf very well. So I'm the one that should typically be able to do that for him. But because of everything going on in 2020, they refused to let me go to the hospital to see him, to talk to the doctors in person, to make sure that he's eating all these things, because they're also swamped with the pandemic. And it's one of those situations where it's like, okay, this rule, I understand why it's here, but test me, stick the thing up my nose, get the results, and then let me go be there with him so he's not sitting alone. And so he has somebody there to keep him company. And it's one of those things where I asked the doctor at one point when my dad was in the hospital for a really long time, I was like, can I please come in and be with him? And they were like, no. And you're like, I get that this is the rule, but we really can't do any. And so like I said, that's a personal example, but there's a lot of times that I think a lot of us can relate to the fact that this rigidity it feels like it goes against common sense. And I think Sean, like he said, there's that panel where you see the kid who they could have easily just healed him, but they're like, well, we can't because it's the rules.
I think like where my brain also went as far as like a real world parallel was like almost like technology. So this magic can be used for very good things, helping people, healing people, which technology can be used for, but it can also be used for war and destruction and bombs and missiles. And it seems like this society with the magic has erred on the side of just, we're shutting it pretty much all down.
Caution.
Right now, I'm a bit curious though on why healing is actually banned. It's just kind of
I agree.
Yeah,
I think they said something about performing magic on another person's body.
Absolutely not allowed, which is interesting.
Something Sean brought up to me that I didn't realize. Where did you say it's published currently?
I can look up the name of the magazine, but it's a sign-in magazine.
Which I wouldn't have expected because it seems younger. So it makes me wonder how dark we might actually get, or how mature some of this might end up. I mean, something like Full Metal is one that it never got to a point where I thought it was really dark and something that, a young person shouldn't be picking up, that they need to wrap it at bookstores so that some kid doesn't open up some horrific panel or something. But Full Metal is one of the hardest hitting. I mean, everything with the Ishvalan War chapters are very hard to read because it's really devastating. So I wonder if we're going to get it where it's always got this sense of optimism and hope, and it's got that childlike wonder because of a lot of our characters. But if we're going to have things that are really devastating also, I
Mm.
wanted to say too, in regards to the characters and kind of pulling off of the Full Metal thing as well, is I am so far really loving that you have these kid characters and then you also have the adults. Because I think when you have that wide range of ages, it just adds something, it feels like it's more complete. And that's something that sometimes is missing for me a little bit in some of the more shonen type of manga and anime, because it just ends up making it feel like the stakes are never really that extreme. But then there's something about when you get the adults into the equation, and like we've talked about several times, where you see them sometimes manipulating the kids, misusing the kids. It adds like a whole other level of weight to it, but it's also done in a way where a young person can read it and maybe some of that might go over their head, and they can come back to it later and be like, wow, I didn't realize that it was touching on all of these things.
Yeah,
So-
like for example, with
oh.
sorry. So go ahead.
Oh, I have a really quick thought. I was gonna say Orugio reminds me of a more responsible Colonel Mustang. You know, and like he's kind of like grouchy and like a little like mess.
Yeah, but he's not a ladies' man.
Yeah, not a ladies' man. But he does specialize in fire too.
That's true.
Yeah,
Does he
that's
set
true.
the ladies' hearts aflame or whatever the silly thing is? What were you gonna say though, Patrick?
No, I was going to say that I think Shirahama did such a great job in talking about physical disabilities as well. Like, for example, with sorry, what's his name? Tarta? Tarta?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Tarta, the one with silver wash. Yeah, the silver wash issue. And I mean, that's practically colorblind in our world, right? It's practically colorblind. And there was a few panels where he was trying to heal Coco, and he cannot see. He cannot see what he need to get, right? Even though he knew what he needed, but he couldn't. And then he said something like, "The real world, like the normal people, never care about people like us." Something like that. I think that one was pretty. It was pretty well done, in my opinion. Even though it was such a small panel, but yeah, it was really well done.
Yeah, a lot of this manga so far feels very much like where the adults are trying to force, some of the adults, the bad mentors, are trying to force children into a predetermined structure of what you should be.
Yeah.
And a lot of these kids, it looks like they're trying to embrace what makes them who they are and why they have their strengths. Because in that character, in that little plot line that you were talking about with that character, you can tell he's brilliant. I mean, he knows the makeup of every single one. He just can't see the colors of them. And so if there was a way to adjust so that it worked to him, if we can just make a tiny little adjustment, then he would excel. But thus far, that's not really the case. And I'm hoping we get to a point where all of them kind of band together and figure out, maybe they can help each other invent things that make them. And I mean, you get Tetia, I'm not sure how to say her name, but she's the one that's constantly like congratulating everybody and thanking everybody. So she's the cheerleader of the group. That's just making everybody feel good about themselves.
I think what you're saying about, I'm not going to quote you quite perfectly, but you said something about like taking their own abilities and kind of learning with it. I think that's what I liked about Rika, is like she seemed very, by the end of the 5th volume, I mean, she was very at first opposed to learning even like the simplest spells because they weren't her spells, they weren't her. And clearly there's some real trauma around that sort of thing from her past with the previous mentor. But at the end, she like decides, well, I'm going to learn these basic spells, but I'm going to do them my way. They're always going to have the little Rika twist on it. And I was like, okay, I can get with that.
I have to
you should probably study though. You know?
I know you kind of mentioned this before, but there's a specific panel where you get a hint of her the first time when she was introduced to, or at least moving to a different atelier, and the atelier she's going to is Orugio and Kifri. And she's like, I refuse. And she seems really determined to, and I love that in that moment, they can meet her where she is. They can tell that something has happened to make her so resistant and untrusting. And the way the panel is done is it very much makes it look like a little kid looking up. Sorry, my camera's moving to my hands. But it's very much it's framed like a little kid looking up to adults, and you see them kind of reaching down to her and saying something along the lines of like, I hope we can get to a point where you trust us. And it's just like so sweet, but kind of full circle. The fact that they know that there are other teachers that are hurting the kids in some fashion, whether it's physical or mental or emotional, they are not treating them well, and they're all the good guys, and they're all supposedly on the same side. And there's like the Knights Morales are so quick to wipe someone's memories, but they're not quick to reprimand these teachers who are
that's why I like whatever old Rogio is, like a watcher or whatever. Like, he's supposed to be there. The Ateliers are supposed to have another adult there to basically like report any wrongdoing. And I think even that concept is, I found interesting in a manga that, for the most part, I mean, it seems like it's a kind of shonen-ish from the beginning, but you're basically saying like there needs to be another adult present in case there is abuse. And you're like, that's not exactly very shonen-y, where usually the mentor is just like, oh, you can trust the mentor, he's fine. But like, this is like, you know, we need to have some accountability here. And I think I keep pointing like I have the volume, but I think you have the volume with you back there. But in that moment, Kifri in that flashback tells Rika like, we're gonna talk to the Watcher for her atelier. So, you know, presumably, hopefully, the person watching over theirs would have some sort of report. But it's realistic and it's kind of sad, but I don't know. I think that's why I kind of like Orugio. He's, you know, obnoxious, and he's not obnoxious. He's just kind of like aloof, but you're like, you care.
He does care. He's actually a softie.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my camera to stop. Were there any other things that you wanted to add before we wrap up? The only other thing I kind of wanted to ask, because the both of you have read a lot of manga, watched a fair amount of anime, those sorts of things. How does this compare so far to some of your other favorites? Can you see this becoming a favorite as we progress through the story? Is it maybe not quite there? Is it already there? What are your thoughts on that?
I think for me, I think there's a potential that it could become one of my favorites. I mean, I've read a lot of manga, so when it comes to manga, I usually allow like 10 volumes. Like a few volumes isn't enough when it comes to manga. They read pretty fast. So yeah, I tend to allow 10 volumes before I really made like a decision like, wow, this is absolutely amazing or something like that. I usually allow 10 volumes. But yeah, there is a lot of potential here. How about you, Sean?
Yeah, I like it a lot. I think I'm already like, it's
Sold.
great. Yeah, I'm sold. I think it would have to really like crash and burn for me to not like it. I mean, when I think of like other things I like that maybe are similar in tone, my brain kind of goes to Promised Neverland. Which, I mean, I think Promised Neverland is a little bit more from the get-go overtly dark, but I mean, you still kind of have like these kid characters, you know, with interesting relationships with the adults, and kind of
really dark.
Yeah, really dark in case of that one. But yeah, I like it a lot. I think a lot of it's different than some of the other things I read, like I don't know, 20th Century Boys or something, where it's just kind of like,
I love that though.
Yeah, I love 20th Century Boys, but like it's kind of like, that's like so, you know, plot heavy, and this obviously has a good plot, but also, you know, the characters, you like and care about the characters and all that.
I think I already love it, but I just think it's gonna keep getting better and better.
Yeah.
And like Sean said, unless it crashes and burns, which I don't really see happening. And it has that sense initially of feeling like it almost feels like it's meandering. In the first few volumes, you know, we're introducing the magic and the characters are having silly little conversations. But she has a structure that she can follow. So you kind of like the tests. So there's a specific path we're probably going to go down, but she has room to do things within that. And I feel like I'm not sure how to say it, basically Romans is how I think of them, the Romanon or
Romanon.
whatever, the city, those kinds of plot lines that you have mixed in within this structure. So it feels like she has beats that she can hit, and then she can do so much in between, and it's going to look so pretty along the way because she just has the best art. But even that kind of short story woven in, even that was emotional when they were happy and thankful to melt, and Coco was trying to save them, and that whole part was really sad. So I think that so far I'm really excited. I was a little nervous at first, like, oh, this is going to be a cute one that I pick up when I want something feel good, but I'm excited because my favorite stories are the ones that make me feel the full range of emotions. You get the cute, happy, sweet moments, and then you get the kind of devastating moments as well. And I think we're already getting glimpses of that in this story. So I'm really excited to keep going. Does Sean have another thought?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, and then we can be done. But I also think it's funny. Like you're just talking about range of emotions, but there's actually like genuinely really funny parts in it too, where you're just like, whether it's the drawings or the dialogue. I mean, there's some pretty funny moments that seem akin to like Full Metal Alchemist funny moments. So
yeah, maybe not as frequent. There's not the short jokes all the time and the drinking of milk, but they definitely, I agree. That's not something we touched on, but when I was first reading this, I kept showing Sean panels because they're just kind of silly and ridiculous. And so, I agree that the humor is definitely present as well. And that's another big plus for us. But the last thing, go ahead.
Both of you talk about Fullmetal Alchemist, and I know that we're not talking about Fullmetal Alchemist here, but that anime or manga is such a great example of capturing so many emotions in one series. So many. And I think it should be, reflected in other manga or anime more often. It's really, really good. Yeah. And I think Witch Atelier is so far from the first 5 volumes is kind of hinting like it will get all that maybe.
Yeah. Like we're revving the engines because I mean Full Metal, again, we're not talking about Full Metal, but just as a parallel, seeing as I was asking how does it compare to other things. I think the first arc of Full Metal, I know there's not specific arcs, but the first part with the priest and that one town, you're like, okay, like they go from one place to the next, and you have this impression, and then very quickly you're hit with the heavy stuff. This one is taking its time a little bit, and I think part of it is because there is this sense of mystery, and I think what she's doing, and the reason that we're not getting too dark too soon, is because she's very slowly establishing your good guys maybe aren't as good as you think. So that when the bad guys, when all their plots are revealed, you will kind of see their side. If you have too much too soon, then it kind of establishes, oh, okay, well, I mean, like the good guys are the good guys, the bad guys are the bad guys. But I think by establishing everything kind of slowly and allowing you time to see that everything is maybe not as it seems, or maybe they're not as good as you think. Clearly there are problems that need to be fixed, but they seem too rigid to do anything about it. Then maybe there is somewhere in the middle where you kind of do see the other side. Now, is it fair to turn sweet little Iuni into a wolf to make your point and have it be where either they cross over to your side or he has his memories wiped? No, sorry, the camera. But I mean, as we've talked about, there's plenty of things that are also uncalled for or just completely unacceptable. I mean, do we know really what's happened with Rika's brother? I don't know that we have a clear-cut answer yet.
Yeah, I thought maybe he was still with that guy. That was my thought, but I don't think we have a clear answer.
Because she seems so determined to keep a hold of who she is, almost like because her brother can't.
That's true.
So the last thing, though, I was going to ask is, do you have any predictions? I kind of already said it way at the beginning, but I'm wondering if Kifri has some dirty laundry, if he's got some familial drama or something going on.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I mean, clearly, I mean, I read the part where he said, like, did you see someone who looked like me? I don't know what I thought that meant, but I guess I don't know why sibling didn't, pop into my head. But that's an interesting idea, that his brother or something is a brimmed
evil
hat.
twin brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great theory. And right now, I don't have any other right now because I know that the volumes are available for me to read. And I don't usually make predictions until after I've read all of them, the available ones. But right now, all I have is that what I said earlier is that there is a chance that the good guys are not really the good guys. It could be that the Brim Hat have a good point to what they're trying to do. That's all really for now.
And I'm excited because one thing we didn't really talk about at all, because it only was just briefly mentioned, is that you're starting to get introduced to more of the Knights Morales at the very end.
Yeah.
You're starting to see, I keep saying it kind of weird, but you're starting to see more of them, and it makes me wonder if we're going to see a divide within their ranks as well. Because some of them, the same way some of the mentors are not all very good, I feel like we're going to see some of them, they're at odds with each other. At least that's kind of what I'm hoping. I wonder if in them kind of going against each other with this potential plot line, if that's when the Brim Hats are going to come in and maybe pull some people to their side.
I will say I was surprised at some of the cracks that are starting to show even within, the quote good side, because Kifri and I forgot her name, the proctor,
Alara.
They pretty much just are like, yeah, we're gonna go hide this kid, and we're not gonna tell the secret, which seems, I mean, that's pretty much treasonous, right, against their order. I mean, like, if they were following the rules, they'd be like, hey, Knights Morales, I got a tip for you over here, And I'm glad they're hiding him away, but already it seems like there's some friction even within that side, where he's the Brim.
I was gonna say very Roy and Riza of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, those are, I think, we didn't get too much into how cool the world is and the fact that you have places underwater and things like that, but it's all basically, I mean, all of it's great, right? So it's hard to try to get through everything. I was surprised that even just with those first 5 volumes that there was so much that we could talk about, because it seems like it starts so silly and fun. But I'm very excited. Last thing I'll say, I'll repeat, the brush buddies are adorable. Are there any final thoughts that either of you wanted to mention?
Not really. It's just that I look forward to reading the next one as soon as possible.
I know that 5th volume was very good, and it makes me. I hope we don't get kind of a lull where it's like, okay, well, we had this big moment, so now I didn't even mention how cool the dragon was. The dragon was so cool. Anyway, okay, cool. Sean, did you have any other final thoughts?
No. I think it's great, and looking forward to reading the next few volumes. Yeah.
Made me very excited because on Sean's lunch break is when he finished the 5th volume, and he texted me. He's like, this series is very good. So I was like, yay. So I'm excited that we've all found a new manga to enjoy.
Yeah.
But anyway, if anybody watches this, let us know your thoughts on the first 5 volumes of Witch Hat. Let us know if you have any predictions. But anyway, thanks everybody, and we'll see you later. Bye.